What's up? It's Geno Ray, host of Native as I Can Be. I wanted to jump on before you listen or watch this week's episode and offer up a bit of a disclaimer. This episode is going to be discussing trauma and physical and sexual trauma. And part of the conversation is about my guest's experience with an individual who exploited the kink and or BDSM community and basically sought to cause harm on vulnerable individuals. This is not reflective of the BDSM or the kink community as a whole. Many people find the experience with that lifestyle to be very consensual and healthy. So, my guest will be discussing an experience with one person, but as I said, does not reflect the community as a whole. And we also wanted to be clear that abuse and trauma do not cause queerness or gender nonconformity. And according to the World Health Organization and the American Academy of Pediatrics, the LGBTQ identities are not pathological and they're not a result of trauma. So we want to lead with that before we get into this episode, actually 2 episodes. And I just want to say very proud of this episode. My guest Claire was very bold and brave and open and honest, and I'm really happy with what we did. But yeah, I guess a trigger warning of sorts that there is some discussions of abuse and even religious abuse to an extent. So just be ready, and if it's too much, I don't, no hard feelings if you don't want to listen to this one or can't make it through it. But I'm very proud of it. There was a cat hair on my shirt the whole time. Lame. Anyways, thank you for showing up. Thank you for listening week after week. Enjoy the episode.
Who's the podcast host that you love the most? Coming to you live from coast to coast. Call me Thunderlip, Spaceman, or G. It's just me being native as I can be.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Geno effin' Ray. This is Native as I Can Be. I'm going to be upfront about this. Getting over a flu that's been running through our house. Still have a little bit of a cough. So if I start to cough, I will mute that in post-production so it's not, right in your ear. So on this podcast, we tell a lot of stories about a variety of things, and what we also try to do is uplift voices of people that maybe have been overlooked or positioned where their voices can't be heard. The story we're gonna tell today is not really about transition, but it's reclamation, and it's about growing up and being told what you're supposed to be, and then we'll talk about the costs of leaving that behind. And we're going to talk about family, military, love, relationships, loss, and ultimately choosing authenticity. And with that, I would like to introduce my very, very special guest, Claire Sterling.
Oh, it's so good to be here. It's good to see you, Geno. And I'm so excited to share my story. And I feel very honored. For sure.
Claire, I don't want you to worry about me dead naming you, because right off the top, I do not remember what your name was. Like
Perfect.
That has completely somehow blanked out of my memory.
I love it.
So me and her used to work at this place out in kind of Gresham area, a van up, whatever. We used to work together.
A van conversion outfit.
Conversion, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we used to work together. Here's the story that's funny about this. We didn't really necessarily work directly together, but every morning or every other morning, they would have a meeting, all the production people, and uh, they would always kick it off with a joke. And so I kind of became the go-to joke guy because I know a bunch of stupid old jokes. And there was one day I was out on a run, dropping something off or picking something up, and I came back and was just in time for the meeting. And I don't know if you remember this, but sometimes I would make the joke about you and Evan. Was Evan
Oh
the
yeah,
guy?
yeah. Evan
So,
Hanesco.
yeah. So sometimes I would make the joke about her and Evan. So this day I came back from my delivery, got to the meeting, and they asked me to tell the joke. And I think the joke was something about you guys having an apartment together and scraping by, and Evan coming in and saying, like, I just made $350.05. And you were like, well, how did you do that? He's like, well, I've been turning tricks for money. These guys are paying to have sex with me. And you were like, wow, but which one of these guys paid you 5 cents? And he said, all of them. Now, the, the reason I bring that up is because I was not aware that morning that you had been let go. Either you left, did you leave, or were you let go?
Yeah, I was let go. They told me it was part of a downsizing.
Okay.
And so yeah, I didn't know either. I didn't know it was happening that day.
So I told this joke about you and Evan, and as soon as I finished, everybody was like, oh. I was like, what the hell is wrong with, like, because I had no idea you'd been fired. So they thought I was like dunking on you because you got fired and like weren't there to defend yourself. I don't know. It was funny. I was like, I didn't even know. I wasn't even here. But anyway,
Oh my God.
yeah. So that's how we know each other, and that story's always been funny to me.
Well, yeah, and I remember going over to you in your area, and you used to tell me all the time about thoughts about this podcast, and I would encourage you all the time. You should do it. Get on it. You have a talent. You have a voice. And I think it's so important to uplift, especially Indigenous people's voices. And I loved the premise at the time that you were describing. And I never thought years later I would actually be so honored to even be on the podcast, which was pretty cool.
It has evolved, yeah. And I did make some episodes back in like 2019. I made 11 or 12. Yeah.
I think your first episode was wasn't it with your dad? Yep. Yeah.
G-pop.
Yeah, I remember that.
So yeah, and then I resurrected it a few months ago, and it's going well. I'm enjoying it. All right. So before we get into it, why don't you describe who you are and where you're at right now?
Just in life, general. Great. So, I'm Claire. I am a trans woman. I've been transitioning for about 2.5 years, almost 2.5 years. My transition medically began in August of 2023. And I socially started transitioning about 6 months before that. And it's been a wild ride. It's come with a lot of challenges, but challenges now, looking back, I'm kind of shocked that it took me this long to be willing to take the steps and to do the work. And it's been worth it. It's been worth it. I have an amazing relationship. We are so happy together. She has been an amazing support role in my life, and I've never been happier. I've never felt more secure just in my gender identity, but also like my body. I can't express how much like chemical imbalance, just feeling like living on the wrong hormones has like been for me. And I wouldn't have known until I'm like, oh my God, this is what people feel like. Normal people like live
Yeah.
like that. You're like, you don't feel this sense of internal distress and um turmoil. It's just, yeah. So I couldn't believe it. And it's been just every day a brighter day.
Great. That's good. We're going to talk about your relationship, current relationship, here in a little bit.
Mhm.
But for now, we're going to go all the way back.
Yeah, all the way back.
You had sent me a couple messages, and one of the
Mhm.
things that you had said was what year were you born? How old are you?
I was born in 92.
92. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, so you're 12 years younger than me. Um, so you had said that you kind of grew up in the Satanic Panic family. Where
Yeah.
was this at?
Yeah. So the first the first 5 years of my life was a lot of moving. We didn't sit still. And though I was born in Washington, we ended up moving almost immediately to Chico, California, and also to Paradise. We're out there, which isn't there anymore, if anyone knows. Burned down. But we bounced around between Washington and Oregon a little bit. And we ended up finally landing in Washougal. And on my mother's side is an uh, extremely inundated with the Satanic Panic cult mindset. So deep-seated fear of anything secular, for sure.
Yes.
I mean, if anyone is kind of well versed and educated on that time, if they didn't live through it or know about it, I mean, this is at a time when like Dungeons and Dragons is considered demonic, Magic the Gathering is demonic. Rock artists are backmasking their music with,
Mhm.
satanic messaging.
Yeah.
But also, what was very pivotal at this time was, and this was its primarily hold was like during the 80s, but um, one of the things that was even on like police file like warnings and PSAs was that people that were part of the Satanic Panic cult that they were kind of calling it, they would say people of the queer and homosexual community that was an identifier, that was a key identifier, and so it created a deep split in America and nationwide panic. The panic was born out of a book. And in the book was about a character who did not know or remember that they were brainwashed and part of a satanic cult, and they were doing sacrifices and all kinds of things. But like it caught like wildfire, and it ended up like an entire school board was like tried because they thought like this whole school was doing this to these kids. And it caused a lot of damage. So I really encourage looking it up because I don't want to go take too much time going into the history of Satanic Panic. But all that to say, um, my mother's immediate family, on her side, they were well steeped in that. And so I grew up with a lot of fear mongering. There was a lot of abuse at that early age between 5 and 9.
Now, would
From
this be
that side of the family.
abuse sort of under the guise of like discipline or like spiritual
Yeah.
cleansing of some sort?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And
Did you have siblings?
I did, but not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay.
Yeah, so one would be too young to be even a part of this space, and then the other wasn't born yet,
Okay.
or wouldn't be born till the very tail end. So all that to say, um, my my parents, I would spend a lot of time being babysat by my extended family, and so my parents didn't really know about what was going on.
Mhm.
Um, It wasn't like my immediate parents that were like this. But the extended family. And so my mom, she was the firstborn of 9. So I had 8 uncles and aunts on just her side of the family with just that grandparent. And yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. And so I was taught at a young age that the queer and homosexual people, like community, would they were demonic or possessed. And so at an early age, I was super scared. I was super scared of my own gender identity, which I didn't even have the education or words for. I just knew deep down that I felt like a girl, and I didn't feel right. Um, I dealt with feelings of self-harm. And like as I'm going through puberty, wanting to like cause harm to my own like genitalia and body because I didn't feel aligned with it. It felt like a foreign object on my body. And so it was really hard during that time. I felt really alone and really isolated.
Do you so when you were that young, between that ages of 5 and 9, did you felt off within your body, but did the way you were coming up with these aunts and uncles, did that feel off, or was that like, well, I guess this is what life is like, and these people, and or were you
Yeah.
like
So
something doesn't feel right here?
I
And
mean,
doesn't
yeah,
it suck
I
that when the parents lead their kids with somebody they think they can trust, a family
right.
member or something, and
Mhm.
it backfires? But anyway, yeah. So what were you feeling about how you were?
I mean, at that time, I thought that's what all kids went through. I mean,
Mhm,
especially some of my uncles and aunts were just a handful of years older than me. So
mhm,
I didn't understand that, like, oh, this family lives out way out in the boonies of Washougal. And I'm completely like isolated from society and community and um, help,
yeah,
and so I don't really know that because I'm brought up to assume that family is sacred and they care about me. And they did not. Um, and so, yeah, it took years. It took
yeah,
years of, unpacking and going to therapy and living life and meeting other people to be like, "Oh, you weren't locked in a bathroom for hours on end, or like food was like withheld from you, like
mhm,
like what do you mean?" Like
yeah,
I went hungry for days. Like
yeah,
what do you mean?
mhm,
And so yeah, it was hard.
yeah. Were there any people or moments that were safe? Were there any people you could trust?
Yeah, I would say trust was is as a loose term at that age, for
Mhm,
me and that circumstance. I didn't really I thought I could trust people, but then, it's really hard because I was like I genuinely didn't make my first friend until I was like 9 or 10 years old.
yeah,
And even then, um again, we live out like way out in the boonies. So like middle of nowhere, really difficult to get into town. It was like a 45-minute drive. Um and that was a lot on gas. I was homeschooled all the way up until 7th grade. And even when I went to school, it was a parent partner program. So parents are still like in the classes with their kids. So it's just like you
ugh,
never got separation from family or someone's family.
ugh, man, that sounds brutal. Because for a lot of kids in that situation, school's where they get away.
Right.
That's where they get to separate from that,
For sure.
and then maybe the right person notices, or they can tell the right person, or whatever. But yeah, a parent, I never even heard of that.
Yeah, so it's called a parent partner program. So it's a program for homeschool kids, but it's technically a public school. And so what they do is they only do classes like 2 days a week, and then you
Mhm.
make up the rest of your time through homework. And so I would get just hours and hours and hours of homework to fill my other days at home with my mother, my parent
Mhm.
who's homeschooling me. And I would have to log all my hours for every subject. So if it was history or writing or science or whatever, math, I would have to take the home and I would have to log all those hours and do all the homework. And it was not normal. I'll tell you that for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So when did you start regular public school then? Or
I
did you?
never went to another actual like regular public school outside of the parent partner program.
Oh, okay.
It was considered a public school, but my graduating class was only 32 kids.
32. Wow. Um,
So
that
everyone at that school was either someone of I would realize later in life was somewhere along the lines of either part of a religious extreme family,
Mhm.
or they were uh, excommunicated from another school because of rejection. They didn't maybe how their parents parented them. So a lot of insecure parents. They wanted to be like really hands on and in control of their kids' lives. So there was a
Yeah,
lot of parents that were like at the school 24/7. Some of the parents even became teachers, which was just weird. It was just
yeah,
weird. And so yeah, it was. I never like started getting my actual cultural like community of like understanding until I graduated high school and I went into the military. Everything was so like weird. Yeah.
so for context, like this is tripping me out. Like you said you were born in 92.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we're talking late 90s, early 2000s. This isn't like Little House on the Prairie 1800s like
No,
isolation. This is not that long ago.
no.
Like that trips me up, man. Like that there's still such wild shit going on. I mean, it
Oh
shouldn't
yeah.
surprise me at this point, but like I know where Washougal is. I've never heard of anything like that going on. But
Well, and
um,
I think something to that like uh to that speaks on behalf of the impact of the satanic panic and how far families went to either isolate themselves and homeschool families or whatever,
mhm,
and afraid of Satan and the cult and
yeah,
homosexuals and really trying to like control and helicopter parent their kids' lives. And I'm not saying that strictly on behalf of my mom. I love my mom, and I think she did her best.
yeah,
They did realize that something was going on, and we did separate ourselves from that family. But I think the damage was already done,
yeah,
and there was so much inundated by her parents that like she still carried forward. Like we were still very much part of a church culture while
hmm,
I was in middle school and high school. And so much so that I was served in the church. I did tons of mission trips. And I was at the church, like serving and like cleaning with my mom, like every week. And so, like, I was very still like religious founded in
hmm,
Christian, like, it went from like satanic panic, Christian extremism to like Christian apologist and evangelical. So it was lighter, but
yeah,
I would, of course, eventually walk away.
yeah. My last guest was a pastor, and he's a good friend of mine, and he's very open about the type of spiritual abuse and how religion can be misused and
Mm,
abused and
yeah.
this and that. I was never religious growing up. I did go to church to hang out with my great grandpa, but that was about
Mhm.
it. Um, so, what drew you to the Air Force then? When did that start to kind of be something wanted to consider?
Something about the Air Force that the Air Force that I considered, because that would be the branch that I joined. Um, uh, One was I had a grandfather who served. Loved him very much. He always spoke highly of the Air Force and his time in. So that was inspiring. Two, I really was recognizing come junior, senior year how segregated I was from society.
Mhm.
I started to pick up on the signs. Um, but I was still content to continue like going to church and participating and all that. But I would start to kind of see the cracks by this time, and I wanted to see the world. I wanted to see people. I wanted to travel. I wanted to get out. Um, and the Air Force felt like a promising outlet for me to do that. Third, and probably the most important and impactful to my decision of all, was, unbeknownst to me, was my gender dysphoria. So again, I would not have the terminology or the education for transgender people and gender dysphoria until years later. And um, I was doing everything I could while I was in high school and middle school to lean into my gender identity. And I felt like the military was like the next step up, the next big thing. It was like, okay, I was assigned male at birth. That's who I'm supposed to be. And I'm going to do everything I can to lean into that, pursue that, and embody it. And part of that, too, was to also like gain approval of my adoptive father. Because we didn't have a strong relationship growing up. And I really wanted that. I really craved a relationship with him and his approval and his affection. And so I felt like if I went into the military, that would kind of like maybe create this bridge between us where maybe we could kind of find a way to meet in the middle. It kind of worked, but in the end, it didn't. It did not work.
So he's not your biological father then?
No, my biological father, I wouldn't actually meet until I was 28 years old.
Okay. But you grew up with your biological mother?
I did, yes.
Okay. I was about to say, if I have another adoptee on this show, like I might just I unintentionally found out one of my guests was an adoptee, and the show just keeps coming back to adoptees. My partner's an adoptee. Like, so this whole between two cultures things comes up a lot with adoptees, because with them it's between their adoptive family, which they're trying to integrate and feel natural in this family that they left behind that they know nothing about.
Right.
But anyway, so I was like, oh man, is she about to drop another adoptee bomb on me? And
well, yeah. So I am still technically adopted by my father. But I did actually still get my mother in my life.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask next is the military, you went into it leaning into the assigned gender identity, was the military, let me see how I want to say this now. Was that helping you hide parts of yourself, or was it actually making it louder?
That was kind of the intention, was I thought maybe it would help me hide, and like, oh, maybe if I lean into it, and kind of in this masculine manosphere, military, warrior ethos, which is, of course, societally established. It's not real.
That's the patriarchy, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. It really is. What I did not expect was the impact of the stripping of my identity going in. I don't think most people realize the impact that has on our military members and what they try to do to break you, to strip you of who you are, and then rebuild you back up as something replaceable and a cog in a wheel. Which isn't even warrior ethos. I mean, so much of the military is about execution and efficiency. Warrior ethos is so much more about sanctity and what is sacred and honor, and none of that was in the military, which I thought I would find. And so disappointed on that front. I would become extremely jaded, calloused, and lost. I didn't know who I was just as a human being. Like, I just felt so stripped down. And it only reinforced a lot of the trauma that I had endured in my youth, which was super rigid, disciplinary, and physically disciplinary. And it would just be exacerbated and expounded upon in the military. So, like, my original intent of getting out, seeing culture, and expanding my worldviews, it did in fact help, but also like heightened and brightened a lot of the stuff that I was already still had in my life. And so it didn't help. It only made things worse.
Yeah. I went into the military not for the same reasons, obviously, but mine was more, I was in Arizona at the time. You know, my friends are knuckleheads. I'm a knucklehead. There's a lot of weed and a lot of beer and a lot of this and that and the third thing. And I just kind of went, if I don't get out of here, I'm not going to be in a good spot here in a few years.
Right.
So I just enlisted to get out of my hometown, basically. And found out when I went back, it was a good idea. I mean, I was in trouble from day one when I was in the military, and I'm sure you're familiar with Article 15s. I doubt you ever, did you? I don't know if you ever got one, but I ended up with many. Did you? Yeah, I ended up with tons of those. Not tons, but multiple. I was constantly in trouble, and the military was not a good fit for me at all, and not for the same reasons as you, obviously, but I didn't. It just I'm not the right type of person for that environment, and
but I don't think anyone is, to be honest, Geno. It's designed to just strip you of your humanity. And for those of us, especially someone as you, who is so enamored and deeply connected with culture and identity, I think it just it's not a cocktail that can be made.
Yeah. On that same note, though, I also had a lot of fun while I was in there. It wasn't all roses, but aside from the trouble, I did have fun. I spent a lot of time in Korea. I got to stop in Japan for a minute, and you know, there's some funny stories that came out of it. But yeah, it was never going to work. It was destined to fail from day one. And but you know, whatever. I still go get my hair cut, you know, on Veterans Day and whatever. Like, it's just it's a small chapter of my life. But I don't think the impact on me, it doesn't sound like, was as heavy as it was on you.
For sure.
So do you have any of that military structure left in you? Are you making your bed every day? And
no way. No, honestly, no. I think I don't really think so. No. I think anything that might call back to that time, I think really is just a manifestation of like my ADHD and like OCD. And so like things that are meant to be like, you know, very structured or whatever, I think is just maybe just how I like it, not really like military inspired, for sure. So for those that are listening, so I was security forces. I was military police, which was so unfortunate. When I tested to get in, I tested into the top 1%. They're like, you can literally get any job you want. You can be whatever you want. The world is your oyster. What career do you want to pick? And immediately I already knew my answer. I was like, I want to be security forces. And they're like you're kidding. And I was like, unbeknownst to me, like, that's how powerful my gender dysphoria was. I was trying to do anything and everything to just make myself tougher, harder. And I'm a trauma survivor. So I'm looking at security forces as like, this has like survival like skills that I can probably learn. And so it won. It won, and I could have been like a radar technician, or I could have been anything. And I threw that away. I went and I became security forces, which is military police. And I would have a successful career for the 4 years that I was in. I signed up for 6. I did get an Article 15 for the stupidest of things, that was kind of like outside of my control, but like circumstances were just not in my favor. And
Yeah.
so that Article 15 stuck to my record and would be the strict qualifier to why I was released early from my contract during the Obama administration's downsizing back in 2012. Well, it started like in 2012, but like I wouldn't actually get out till like 2014. But yeah, so I was security forces, and it was hard. It was a very hard. It was hard on my body. It was hard on my spirit. It was, yeah. Don't recommend it.
My first Article 15 was for fraternization in basic training.
Mm.
And it was so stupid, man. This girl wrote a note to me and, wrote like, "What's up, Private Ray? What's up, Boo?" And she wrote this whole, love note thing. Didn't sign her name. And then she dropped it on the way to deliver it. And somebody else picked it up. And rather than do the right thing and throw it away,
Yeah.
or even better, hand it to me directly, she gave it to the drill sergeant. And we
Oh
were
my
sitting
God.
there like getting ready to go to chow. And there was only like 2 or 3 weeks left of basic training. And so things had kind of started to mellow a little bit. It wasn't quite
Yeah.
as intense. And we're all just standing there, and the drill sergeant's at the front of the company. He's like, "Where's Private Boo at?" And we're all like, "Ha, that guy, that sucks for that guy. Come on, Private Boo. Where you at, Private Boo?" And we're all just like looking around. "Get up here, Ray." I was like,
Oh no.
fuck. And
Well, you
so,
don't even know either because you didn't get to read it, so you don't even
yeah,
know you're Boo.
I knew
Someone's calling you Boo.
I knew who it was, but I never got to read the note. But so then for the next 3 weeks, I'm Private Boo.
Oh no.
Everybody that signed my basic training, like yearbook thing was like, "Hey, what's up, Private Boo?" Like,
That's so funny.
I was Private Boo for the next 3 weeks. Yeah, and I got an Article 15 for that. And I
That's
think it was
crazy.
partly because I wouldn't give up who it was. So they were like, "Well, what does that matter who it was?" Like, anyway.
Yeah.
Fraternization, yeah. So then at the last week when people got to go off base and stuff, I had to stay behind and do all this extra duty and all that shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so you got out in 2014. So what was the trauma and the PTSD? How was that showing up for you then?
I think immediately after, depression really settled in. Again, a lot of that is built on an identity stripped, which was already like really hard to come to terms with. But when your identity that you establish in youth is already built on survival and trauma, and you're trying to just like live,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's like stripped and rebuilt, it like you don't even have anything healthy to call back to from your youth. So
Right.
like I dealt with like a lot of insomnia and depression, both in my last like year of service and for the couple years after. Um, I would just find myself weeping and just like struggling to figure out what my next thing is. I was a busybody, so I couldn't sit still. I didn't like being alone. I didn't like the feeling of isolation. I already dealt with enough of it in the military. Um, and what didn't help was coming back. My parents were like going through a separation with eventual divorce. So like my family's kind of like in turmoil and chaos. So there was no like exciting to come home. It was like I just went from chaos to chaos to chaos. And
Yeah.
so coming home was hard. It was hard to see my family like that. It was hard um to create time and space to heal. And so I went pretty much straight to work. I think I was out of work for like 3 or 4 weeks, and I was
Mhm.
right back to work. I got a job offer at Car Toys. And I started getting into car audio and auto detail. And I would just pour my time into work. I would just like, it wasn't 40 hours, it was 60 hours or 50 or whatever, to
Yeah.
just numb my emotional self and work myself to the bone.
Was this still in Washougal area, or were they somewhere
This
else?
was I worked in Portland.
Mm.
Yeah, I worked in Portland. I lived out in Portland for a little while. And it was just, yeah, it was just a shitty job. I hated it. I hated working at Car Toys. And I would eventually go to another car audio shop, which I didn't like either, but I got a lot of good skills out of it, so that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you probably, I think we've touched on it a couple times. You probably didn't have the language for the dysphoria yet, but is it just getting louder and louder at this point? And
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And so we're going beyond just like a discomfort. It's, well, how would you describe it at this point in your life?
Yeah, so I guess we haven't really like officially talked about it. So from youth, and is like, let me take a step back. I'm sorry. So in my youth, it started with just what I've already described, like feelings of like wanting to do self-harm. And then also it would eventually branch into I would wear my mom's clothes growing up when they weren't home or something like that. Sometimes I'll never forget like painting my toenails, and I was like so euphoric from the experience, but so genuinely deeply terrified that I would like wear socks until like the next time my parents were gone for the day, and I would find my mom's nail polish remover and remove it. I was so scared.
Yeah.
And then as time would go on, I would gain access to the internet. Now, out in you know in the middle of nowhere of Washougal, we only had dial-up, so it was terrible internet. But I'll never forget when I got it, and I was like in private. No one was home, and or at least I like in secrecy. I would I would start looking up things to understand why I felt like a girl. Um, Something that I didn't touch on yet that I think is critical to kind of tie in with this is when I was around 8 years old, I experienced sexual abuse, and that included being tied up. And so when I got access to the internet, I would, through my puberty, not be able to distinguish my first sexual experience in my youth and the euphoria of sexual arousal and the euphoria of gender euphoria, which can inhabit arousal as synonymous from each other. I didn't know that. So in my youth and uneducated, my first like Yahoo search or whatever was, why do I feel pretty when I'm tied up? That was like the first thing I looked up. And for years, I thought those two were one and the same. That my when I would experience gender euphoria, it would come from a place of what I thought was what I would come to understand as kinks. So my search results would yield things like bondage and BDSM. And this is the wild west of the internet, okay? We're talking, if I'm 8 years old, this is 2000. So 9/11 hasn't even happened yet. Internet is in its infancy. Nothing is regulated or protected or barriers established. And so from a young age, I established um, um, my gender dysphoria as like a kink. I thought I just wanted to be a girl, or I wanted to feel like one sexually.
Mm-hmm.
And that would lead me down very dangerous rabbit holes at an early age. So I went from 0 to 1,000 so fast.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, at that time, the things that were on the internet was just not safe, just not
Yeah.
protected or regulated. And it makes me sad. It makes me sad. This is, and me kind of sharing this is kind of in part why, when people are saying, well, like, trans youth shouldn't have access to like trans care for access for youth is like access to professionals and the education and the
Right.
therapeutic help. um there's no cases. First of all, you can't get like surgery
Mm.
before you're an adult, like 18. um and and it allows to create a safe space to work with a professional and
Mm.
understand what's actually going on. And I didn't have that access, and it caused long-term damage. And
Yeah.
so I was resorting to pornography to help
Mm-hmm.
me figure out why I felt the way I did, which led me down a pipeline of awful things, things that I had no business seeing, especially at the age I was seeing it.
Yeah.
Um, and it would eventually that's what would tie me into dealing with a predator later. And we can talk on that. I will talk on that a little bit later because it is important to talk about. That's something I do want to share.
Okay.
Um, but as for after the military, um, yeah, dysphoria was I'm alone, and now I'm like, the military didn't fix my problem why I joined.
Yeah.
Now what's going to fix my problem? Because I'm still like deeply established and rooted in a lot of religious context and the satanic panic teachings of how it's demonic. So I felt so much shame and guilt, and it would eventually pour into my first relationship. um and it was really hard. It was really, really hard.
This is the perfect storm. And just hearing this now, it makes me grateful that you are still with us, because
Mm.
when you start stacking this stuff up, we're talking about this super strict religious background, um, early access to pornography, a lack of education about what you're going
Violent
through.
pornography too.
Yeah. And uh, yeah, so then a lack of education of what you're going through, a lack of education for people around you that continues to this day. Um, the military trauma and PTSD of that having a reverse effect of what you were looking for.
Mhm.
This is a big old pile of trauma and
Yeah.
despair. And uh, yeah, I mean, just hearing it back, and I think about, pre-internet days when somebody in your position couldn't look up what was going on to them and had to be closeted or hide it or whatever they had to do, and they're living in that shame, and it was never dealt with.
Mhm.
They never got to be fully who they were. Sad, man. It's rough.
Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, no, I commend you for being here, and you know getting through that, and yeah, the early internet, I forgot about that. um yeah. Anyway, so yeah, no, I'm glad you're with us. I just want to say, like, it
Thank you.
sounds really hard, and I appreciate that you persevered.
Absolutely.
So well, we can get into the relationships part now, I guess, because we've kind of touched on all these things. um
Sorry if I kind of like went a little long there.
no, that's all right. I here's one that I wanted to bring up. um and you brought it up earlier, the first round of this podcast, you and me had talked about, I don't know if it was your girlfriend or your wife at the time being a guest, because I think she's indigenous.
Yeah. It was she would eventually be my secret wife.
Secret wife.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a story there, but we were not married at the time. We were newly dating.
Mhm.
And she was Lakota.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So to skip a little bit ahead and then we'll backtrack, I was friends with her on Facebook, and I remember her posting shit like, you think you know somebody, and somebody's this way, and then all of a sudden they're this way, and you're blindsided. And I was like, what the hell is she talking about? And then I don't remember exactly how I found out you were transitioning, but I was like, oh, that's what she's talking about. And
Oh, really? Yeah, we weren't friends after we split, so I'm curious what she said.
yeah, she was she had a couple choice things to say about it. And then, but yeah, like I said, it wasn't until later on when you yourself, however that was, I don't remember if it was Facebook or however I found out. That's when I was like, oh, that's what she was talking about. Because once I didn't see her around Outside Band as much, and that idea of having her as a guest kind of withered. And so I was that was not even a clue, but just those two connected later on. But
Yeah.
anyways, so she was really she did not take too well to that. It did not seem like. Um
Yeah, I would send in a letter that I titled an apology and an accountability. Really just talking about recognizing the impact of my gender dysphoria that it had on the relationship and strained it.
mhm,
And uh, not to say that the fallout of that relationship was wholeheartedly mine, but I wanted to be able to show up and be able to still say, "Hey, I I wish I had the education and the, you know, support and aid in these ways, and I wish I had started the work earlier because it really impacted our relationship." And looking back, I'm glad that we moved on. I'm glad that we went our separate ways. There was a lot of things that I think her and I just didn't see eye to eye on. There was a lot of ways that I wasn't educated about certain things, and yeah, it just wasn't a good fit
mhm,
looking back. But sometimes when you are, especially like, me trying to uh, lean into, again, my gender assigned at birth, um, I'm like, this is it. This is it. This is all or nothing. If I don't
mhm.
give this everything, and if it fail, like, and so that's what would happen.
Um, so at this time, or around this time, you had mentioned off air, you had closed the business, you're divorced, you sold your house. Is this kind of your rock bottom right around this time?
Yeah. So her and I would be together between 2019 and 2022, which is a strange period because that's at the infancy, peak, and fallout of COVID. Um, and that came with its own challenges. And after separating, um, we had bought a house together. That's kind of why we got like secretly married, because in order to get approved for my military loan as a veteran, my veteran home loan,
Yeah.
which would cover my 100% my deposit for the first house that we bought. Um, my income would not qualify me for the loan, but our income combined would, and so we got married for it,
Mhm.
and we got a house. It was this cute little house, brand new. No one lived in it. We moved into it like 4 days after it was finished being built. It was like a $400,000 home. and I kid you not, you're going to cry. It makes me freaking so sad. We got it at 2.5% because that was
Yeah.
we got it at the time when like COVID was so bad, like
Mm-hmm.
the housing market was like trying to do anything they could to sell. And
Yeah.
so we got it through a program by a housing complex that built the houses called LGI Homes, and they had a first-time home buyer that would cover the closing cost. So between the closing costs being covered and the military covering the deposit,
Mm-hmm.
we moved in for $1,000 brand new house at 2.5%.
That's
And we refinanced at 2.25%. And yeah, we ended up not working out and we had to sell the house. And my business was built. I had an upholstery business built out of my garage, and it was not lasting. I could not afford a property outside of what I was already doing. And so I had to close my shop.
yeah. We bought our first house, I think, at like 2.2. And the house that I live in now is like 6 something.
Mm-hmm.
And we still have our old house for sale, and nobody wants it. So
Mm-hmm.
we're in a double mortgage situation, which is real fun. That's not at all
Mhm.
stressful. So do you think that it's almost like a house of cards crumbling? How much of that do you think, this is really hypothetical, speculative, but had you been living more authentically, do you think it would have turned out any different for you?
I do. Yeah, I do. Um, I being where I'm at now, realizing my lack of education, my lack
Mhm.
of queer community access, um, and lack of just friends in the queer community.
Mhm.
Um, I I think my life would have turned out completely different. Um, I am very happy and proud of where I am today.
Mhm.
But I do think that my life would have been completely different. I'm not going to say better, but I would say different for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say it would probably came with a lot less hardship.
Right.
I adopted so many of my own self-imposed problem solving,
Mm-hmm.
especially like I said, like using a lot of like pornography as like a source of like
Yeah.
thinking that I'm solving my gender dysphoria by satiating a kink that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
actually a kink,
Right.
um, and not having the education or know-how for the difference. So after we got divorced and sold the house and everything like that, I would eventually get I would try. I'm like my dysphoria is screaming, and
Mm-hmm.
so I would turn to a dating website for kinks specifically. And I would list that I was looking for a certain type of experience
Mm-hmm.
that would, I felt, allow me to feel like my feminine self in the bedroom. And um, I want to preface this before, because I don't want anyone to at me in the comments, right? Um, I think the BDSM community can be a beautiful, beautiful and powerful thing. I think there's
Mm-hmm.
so much beauty in that space. And I think there's so much exploration and healing that can be found in there.
Yeah.
With that being said, there are bad actors that use that space uh, to take advantage of people.
Okay.
People that don't know or not are not educated. And I came across someone who was that bad actor, a predator. And they used they they tried to get me to send them nudes and send them money. And I did. I sent them a lot of money. I didn't send them nudes, but I did send them a lot of money that I would never get back. I would never see again. It was money drained from my company savings account that I had built over the year.
Mm-hmm.
And and they would I'm glad I didn't send them pictures because they would have used that to blackmail me.
Mm-hmm.
Um And they would try to get me to sign a contract to be a sissy slave, and try and lock me in. They wanted me to move out somewhere. They wanted to pay for a plane ticket for me to move to go to somewhere I've never been. Um, and it was very scary. It was very, very scary. And yeah, I realized that there are people that try to use um, that space to take advantage of, specifically more so, trans women that are unbeknownst to themselves yet.
Right.
So I think they try to capitalize on that. I would start uncovering things like sissy training programs that try to eventually get like the their quote unquote sissy slave to transition based off of power, the power dynamic. I don't think that is, I think that there's a difference between consensual, like you both know what the goal is and what you want to do and the dynamic you want, and a predator trying to lock you into a blackmail situation where there's no way out. You're so deeply ashamed of who you are, but you don't have anywhere else to go, and so you're taken advantage of. And you don't have the access, I didn't at the time yet, to the science and the help and the aid and the support and the community to be able to help me explore these things. Instead, I'm jumping into a deep end of something that I don't know anything about, and I'm thinking that this is my problem and it'll solve it. Yeah, happy Yule, and I'll talk to you later. See ya.
Bye, everybody.